total for CERN is $162,000. That's what each region is going to get. So our portion is the total, $162,000.
My name is Mildred McLean. I have been organizing for the past 61 years. My experience as an organizer is a mixed bag. It is what my assignment is. That's what I came to do outside of teaching. In the 61 years of organizing, I've witnessed almost everything because I participated in the civil rights movement, I participated in the women's movement, the environmental justice movement, the Black nationalist movement, the Pan-Africanist movement. Any movement that is for justice, I have been a part of. And during the last administration, we witnessed with the stroke of a pen, with executive orders, with rollback of regulations, almost all of those 32 years of work wiped out, pushed down the drain, because a lot of the regulations were rolled back or eliminated. So when that happens, you look at I have invested 30 years of my life, 30 years of missing birthdays of children, birthdays of grandchildren, major events in the community because you're out organizing. In our work or our fight for environmental justice, we are trying to transform neighborhoods and communities that have been exposed to all kinds of toxins and poisons and contaminants, vis-a-vis the air, the water, the soil, industrial insult and industrial assault. We are fighting against laws and regulations that err to the side of those who pollute us. We fight against corporate polluters. We fight against government polluters. We fight against those things that deteriorate our quality of life on the regular. We fight against companies being able to emit particulate matter, able to emit dioxin, able to emit things that we can't even pronounce. We are fighting against that kind of behavior and that kind of system. What are we fighting for? The environmental justice community fights for, let's say, equity. It fights for justice. The story for us is that coming from the Atlantic Ocean to Lazaretto Creek was the first port where we got off. And we were taken off of those ships to be cleaned up. First of all, assessed, the extent to which our teeth was good, our hair, our skin, or whatever, then cleaned up and repackaged, so to speak, put back on those ships or put on small boats to then come back in a little small part of the ocean into the place where it meets the river, and those people then were taken up through the Savannah River Canal up to the places where they would be auctioned off. So for us, environmental justice or environmental contamination started right there on those ships. And we go to Lazaretto Creek as a remembrance of the connection between what we do today and what was done to us hundreds of years ago. So as we do our work in Savannah, we are always cognizant of that legacy that we carry. And it emboldens us to do work in a very different way, because all of that work is geared toward dismantling the heritage and the legacy that we have had as enslaved people in this area. And we use it as a springboard to keep us strong in knowing that we are so connected with our ancestors, and that our ancestors are an active part of the movement because they help to guide us, they help to protect us, they help to show us the way.
So one of the things that I was about to bring up with the former principal, Frank Spearman, he was the principal while I was at Peach County. He came to a couple of community meetings.
Hey, Queen of the Sunshine. Hello. How are you? I'm doing wonderful. So, you were telling me about the disparities and just the differences when you were living in Warner Robins and living in other places in Georgia with your utilities.
Right.
So, what were some of the differences that you noticed?
Well, the difference when I moved home in 2015 and I got, God blessed me to be here with this place in 2016, it's just the difference in the utilities.
I've been organizing since I could talk. My first bit of organizing probably happened in this den with my brother, trying to organize ways that we could stay outside and play longer and things of that nature, definitely in the classroom. My first bit of social justice organizing occurred when I was 6. There was a situation here. During that time, we had a Refco drugstore, and there was a single pregnant black woman that went into the drugstore, and there was a white clerk who accused her of stealing. And instead of her approaching her with any sense of dignity, he chose to body slam her. And so there were protests, and I can recall going with my mother to protest. And I can honestly say that looking back on it, my mother raised me to be an organizer. It's in my blood, it's in my DNA, and it's got me where I am today. But I've been organizing with the Partnership for Southern Equity since 2018. Organizing in Fort Valley, it can be hard. A lot of times people are comfortable, especially when you're dealing in a small town or rural area, because you know everybody. You know, in a place like Fort Valley, your leadership, you know, your elected officials may also be your Sunday school teacher. They may have been your principal at one time. They may have been your basketball coach. They're people that you go to church with. It can be a beautiful thing. It can be a very strong thing, especially in a place like Fort Valley. A lot of people are under the impression when you are speaking to a place like Fort Valley, Georgia, that's very small with about 3 traffic lights, that you're dealing with a lot of docile individuals, but that is simply not the case. What drives me every day as an organizer is just the love and passion, you know, that I have for my community, even just complete strangers. Just knowing that, you know, this is a work of love and of service and just the passion for it. People in the community at times will joke and call me the Fort Valley Olivia Pope. And I'm actually true to my name, which is pronounced Go See Her. So the kind of running joke is if you want something done, or if they're having this idea, or they're trying to figure out, you know, Marsha, I'm feeling like I think something's not right about this situation, or have you read this? And so I've, I have a reputation of being trustworthy, of being ethical, for meaning what I say, saying what I mean, calling a thing, and getting results. Even when I've tried to run from it and go hide somewhere, it's like, you know, something comes up and, you know, I get that call, and because of my love for the community and just my love for our people, I'm gonna always, you know, answer that call. And, you know, I'd be dishonest if I said it didn't. You know, it can be consuming sometimes, and because, you know, it's always something. You know, there's always a way, there's always something that you can organize around, and there's always an issue that you can try to strategize around and push a needle and get a result and get something done. And when you're dealing, you know, in the world of racial equity matters, you know, until we dismantle imperialism and white supremacy, then it's always going to be an issue.
I have been an organizer for about 3 years. Organizing in Atlanta is fun for me because I work with youth populations, so it's really encouraging when you're organizing here because the students are really dynamic and they're really aware of what's going on. So we work with several universities across the city of Atlanta. We work with the AUC, which is Clark, Atlanta, Morehouse, and Spelman. We work with Georgia Tech, we work with Emory, Oglethorpe, and several other universities across the area. My experience with organizing over the last 5 or 6 years, I've been introduced to organizers, is very extractive. People parachute in from a national organization and they have this money and they have this notoriety and they try to make quick relationships, make quick deals and swoop in for the press release. And then when the press is gone and the money is gone, they leave. Values-based organizing is really about a relationship. It's really about trust. So PSE doesn't go into community unless it's asked to go into community. That's the first thing. When PSE goes into community, they don't ascribe what needs to be done, they ask what needs to be done. And once they ask what needs to be done, we listen. So we're not gonna go into a community and say everybody has to have solar in order for us to have a better future. We ask like, what are your problems? And if the problem is diapers, but we came in there as the energy team, then we're gonna transition our conversation to diapers. Because if I can't meet your basic needs on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, then there's no way I can ever get you up the ladder to deal with something as esoteric as a climate disaster, because you have day-to-day disasters. Living in the ghetto with the inability to pay your light bill is by far one of the most nerve-wracking things that I've ever experienced. When every other kid is waking up and going to school and not really having to think about the first 30 to 45 minutes of their day to get to school, life's pretty simple. But for a kid who wakes up and there is no lights and your mom has to kind of figure it out for you so you can kind of wash up before, so nobody knows that how bad life is right now for you. It's pretty hard. Like I remember being 5, 6 years old and my mom like having to put water on the gas stove and warm it up and taking a little dish rag and be like, all right, go in the bathroom and clean yourself up, and then you go to school. If the lights still are not on by the time we get home, we'll get takeout, we'll light a candle, we'll raise the window and the blinds up. Like we'll make the compromises necessary. If you need to do your homework, we'll go to the library for an hour. So it's a lot of time that gets eroded away from you when you have to deal with energy burden at such a young age, because the simple flick of a switch, the thing that took you a millisecond to do that you didn't have to think about, there's another kid who has to take a 45-minute compromise to that. And if you collectively add that up 5 days a week, 8 months out the year, it really adds up on what you're spending your time doing versus what you could be spending your time doing. And it's difficult. It's very, very difficult. The understanding that there's another kid just like me who is in elementary school right now, who is just trying to figure out and get through the day, that doesn't have energy, really does motivate me to get up and do my job every day. I think also in tandem with that, the fact that we have technologies now that can completely undermine the system that exists and give you freedom away from a utility company really, really inspires me. So as I move forward, my career, solar and energy efficiency and things like that are really going to be pivotal for the generation that I'm in and the generations behind us, because we may live in a world where you don't have an electric bill, and we've never met a human being that didn't before now. And the fact that that's a possibility gives me a lot of hope.
I've been organizing since I was a teenager. A good day for me as a community organizer in Atlanta is just about relationship building. When you talk to someone and they have an aha moment or a light bulb moment, when it clicks, when they understand the intersection between utility justice and housing affordability, when they understand the connection between energy equity and food insecurity and those type of things, and when they understand that everything that we do at the Partnership for Southern Equity impacts them on a daily basis, and we can make the issues that we talk about kitchen table topics. I'm striving to help the grandmother who lives on a fixed income. I'm striving to help the boys in the hood that hang out on the block that don't know how they can impact or foster change for their community. I am doing this work for the least of these, the lost, the overlooked, for the next generation that's coming behind me, for everyday Black folks, brown folks, indigenous people, people who've been written off and sold out. A tough day in the work is people calling you and asking if you can help them with Thanksgiving or Christmas. A tough day in the work is people who often need the help of the organizer for their immediate and felt needs. The people who know your love of community and they seek your assistance for wraparound services. Hearing stories about children who don't have electricity when school is virtual. Families who, even though you do racial justice work, call you because they need groceries. And understand that you understand that there is no disconnect between economic justice, racial justice, and energy justice. And so I get those phone calls, even though I don't work at the Salvation Army, even though I don't work at a mission, even though I don't provide wraparound services. I get the calls when folks are struggling. I get the calls when folks need somebody with some muscle, when they're going to the school board or when they're going to city council or when they've called Georgia Power or their local municipality and they're not being treated fairly, when they're being minimized and overlooked. So that's what hard days in the work looks like.
I've been an organizer literally since I was 8 years old, engaged in the community with my parents who were involved in the civil rights movement, holding up protest signs before I knew what they said. It's been a part of my life, and it's something that will always be a part of my life. I started Partnership for Southern Equity 10 years ago now because I felt that more than charismatic leaders, we needed strong organizations in order to move us forward as a community. And so I transitioned from my job at a university to begin the hard work of growing an institution. And I was blessed to have one person who believed in my vision, a gentleman by the name of Dwayne Patterson, who was the first employee of the Partnership for Southern Equity. And at the time, I was actually still at the university that I was working at when PSE was started. And over the years, it grew and became more and more influential and began to touch more than the initial areas that we were engaged in. And now it has just been an honor really to see not only how it has grown, but the way it has impacted, in my opinion, the lexicon of our communities and the way that we look at the work and how we articulate the work. And for me, what I'm hoping also, my prayer is that the Partnership for Southern Equity has also played a role in shrinking what I call the courage gap in our communities, and that it has inspired more people to speak out and be courageous.
I am Dr. Mildred McLean, and I am a community organizer in Savannah, Georgia.
I'm Marcia Gosier, and I'm a community organizer in rural Georgia.
I'm Juan Smith, and I'm a community organizer in Atlanta, Georgia.